It's that time of year where Canadians and Americans alike throw barbecues, watch fireworks, eat hot dogs, and celebrate their national pride together. Canada does this on July 1st on Canada Day, and the US does this on July 4th on Independence Day. And while the celebrations look largely the same, they're actually not celebrating the same thing. So other than celebrating two different countries, what really is the difference between Canada Day and the 4th of July? Canada Day celebrates when Canada was first formed, and the 4th of July celebrates when the US gained its independence from Britain. Let's start with the history of each holiday. There were 13 colonies in the US, and the 13 colonies, for a lot of reasons, were starting to get fed up with being so attached to Britain. So on July 2nd, 1776, Continental Congress got together and voted to become independent. And then the Declaration of Independence was signed by everyone on July 4th. So there was some debate about whether it should be July 2nd or July 4th, but as we all know, the 4th of July is now our holiday in the US. And up here in Canada, Canada Day is the anniversary of July 1st, 1867, when the British North America Act was created, and that's now known as the Constitution Act. And what happened here is that after the American Civil War ended, the British colonies up in what's now Canada were a little bit worried that the Americans might come after them and take over their area. So they decided to join forces. And those 3 British colonies decided to become a kingdom, or actually what they called a dominion, called Canada. But this is not the same as Independence Day like it is for July 4th in the US, because while they joined forces, they were still very much connected to Britain. They were a kingdom under Britain. And while Canada did gain some independence over time, it's actually still not fully independent from Britain like the US is. But in 1982, Canadian government was given the power to change the Canadian Constitution in what was called the Canada Act. So that was our biggest step in independence from England. However, the Queen remains our head of state. So while one is celebrating independence from England and the other is celebrating joining together as a country for the first time, both of them are national patriotic holidays. And when did they become holidays? Actually, turns out they became holidays in the same decade. American Congress named Independence Day a US holiday in 1870, and Canada named what they then called Dominion Day a holiday in 1879. Because Canada was a dominion at the time, they called it Dominion Day, but apparently people started calling it Canada Day partially because we had so many French speakers and Dominion Day didn't translate very well. So in 1982, which we learned is the same year that the Canada Act went through and Canada gained power over its own constitution, they officially changed the name to Canada Day. And then in the US, where it is Independence Day, most people actually don't say Independence Day. They usually say the 4th of July or sometimes July 4th. Why? I couldn't really tell, but it turned out that the shift happened a long time ago. In the 19th century, 4th of July was by far the more popular term. So we've got one country celebrating its patriotism over its independence from Britain, and instead of Independence Day, we tend to call this the 4th of July. And we've got another country that's celebrating its joining together in a dominion called Dominion Day that's actually now called Canada Day. Why they happen to be 3 days apart is actually kind of a coincidence. Canada did not choose July 1st just because July 4th was already the holiday in the US. In fact, it wasn't even the same celebration they were having. It just so happened to be the time that they felt they needed to create that dominion. But even though they have different roots, they are the national patriotic holidays, and because it happens to be in a nice summer month in both countries, we both happen to celebrate it outside with barbecues, wearing our flag's colors, watching parades, both have fireworks. They're really quite similar. From my personal perspective, I was raised in the US and came to Canada as an adult. And while I would say most holidays are actually celebrated in a bit more extreme way in the US than they are in Canada, people go a little bit more all out, I would not say that's the case with the 4th of July and Canada Day. I think they celebrate pretty equally. On the 4th of July, people hang their American flags. They make cakes that look like American flags out of strawberries and blueberries. They wear American flag shirts and clothing. Everyone gets together to celebrate the country that we're all a part of. And the same goes for Canada Day. Canada flags start popping up everywhere. People are wearing red and white. They're wearing as many maple leaf symbols as they have. And they are also making cakes with strawberries that make the Canadian flag. They're really quite similar in a lot of ways, and I really love celebrating both of them. So if you're Canadian, happy Canada Day, and if you're American, happy 4th of July.